The human child in processing chamber 6 wouldn't stop staring at me. Most species thrash, scream, or curl into defensive postures when we begin the cataloging process. But this one just watched. Those strange binocular eyes focused on my primary manipulators as I entered the acquisition data into our systems. Species human. Age bracket juvenile. Colony of origin New Boca Chica. I subvocalized into my implant, letting our ship's AI handle the filing. The child's gaze never wavered. Estimated market value, a distant explosion rocked our landing craft, strong enough to make my secondary nerve clusters tingle. I chittered in annoyance. The resistance on this colony was proving more stubborn than our intelligence had suggested. Still, nothing our shield arrays couldn't handle. Continue scan, I ordered the processing chamber's medical suite. The child remained unnaturally still as lattices of orange light played across their small form. Most peculiar. In my 6 cycles as a member of the CRIF acquisition fleet, I'd never encountered prey that remained so composed. My command implant buzzed. Dexidal, Captain Zeraz's voice filled my mind. Status report on processing chamber 6. Proceeding normally, Captain. Current batch is 87% cataloged. Though I should note another explosion, closer this time. The chamber's illumination flickered. Noted, the captain cut me off. Accelerate processing. Ground teams are reporting unusual resistance in 7 and 13. Some kind of energy weapons we've not encountered before. Blue fire effect. Research division is analyzing. I acknowledged the order and increased the scanning speed. The human child's eyes narrowed slightly, the first change in expression I'd seen. Something about that look made my carapace itch. "You're doing it wrong," the child said suddenly. In perfect galactic standard. I nearly dropped my data slate. Most species required at least a full cycle to master even basic standard. Doing what wrong? The invasion. The child's voice was calm, almost pitying. "You didn't check for nights, did you?" Before I could respond, my implant screamed with emergency broadcasts. Sector 7's shield grid had failed completely. Not overwhelmed or depleted, simply failed, as if the underlying physics had been locally rewritten. The tactical feed showed images of humans in distinctive powered armor advancing through the breach. Their weapons left trails of blue fire in their wake, and something on their boots created distortions in space itself with each step. "Dexidal." The captain's voice was sharp with an emotion I'd never heard from her before. "Finish processing and return to the ship. Ground teams are reporting, the feed filled with static. When it cleared, I heard sounds that would haunt my dreams for the remainder of my abbreviated life. The rhythmic jingling of metal spurs, and what the translation matrix identified as whistling. The kind of whistling I would later learn that humans associate with graveyards. "They're coming," the child said, smiling now. "The nights always come for their own." My secondary hearts began to race. Throughout the holds, other human captives had begun to whisper. The same words over and over in their native tongue. The translation was unclear, but it reminded me of prayer. "The eyes of Texas are upon you, all teams fall back," the captain ordered. "Slave processing is suspended. Secure current acquisitions and prepare for immediate departure." I moved to deactivate the chamber, but the child spoke again. "My mom's a Thai Knight, 23rd generation Texas Knight. And you took her family." The processing chamber's force field dissolved. I stepped back instinctively, though the child made no move to escape. They simply sat there, still smiling that terrible smile. "She's going to find you," they continued. "All of you. The eyes of Texas are upon you now, and they never blink." Emergency klaxons blared throughout the landing craft. We were leaving faster than any previous raid. I'd never seen the captain abandon potential merchandise like this. As I sealed the holding cells, I caught glimpses of the tactical feeds, those strange humans in their powered armor, advancing with inexorable purpose. Their weapons weren't like the plasma rifles or mass drivers we usually encountered. They wielded what appeared to be primitive projectile weapons, adorned with quantum technology we couldn't begin to comprehend. And those spurs, by the void, those spurs, each step left reality itself distorted in their wake. We broke atmosphere in a burst of emergency thrust that would have killed unprotected passengers. As our ship accelerated toward the quantum jump point, a transmission broke through our communications blackout. A single human appeared on all our screens simultaneously, a knight in battle-scarred armor, their helmet's faceplate retracting to reveal features carved from granite and eyes that burned like plasma fire. "You took my family," the knight said, voice carrying that strange accent our linguists would later identify as Texan. My child. My home. Throughout the galaxy, folks know that Texas Knights are patient. We're methodical. And we never, ever forget. The knight's next words seemed to echo through our ship's corridors, through our implants, through our very souls. We will give you no quarter. The transmission cut off. We made our jump to quantum space moments later. As the familiar disorientation of faster-than-light travel washed over me, I noticed my hands were shaking. In the holding cells, the human captives had begun to sing. The same song, all of them in perfect harmony. The eyes of Texas are upon you, Captain Zera's mandibles twitched, the first sign of fear I'd ever seen from her. She knew, as I was beginning to understand, that we hadn't just raided a colony. We had awakened something ancient, something implacable, something that treated vengeance not as an emotion, but as a solemn duty passed down through generations. And somewhere out in the darkness between stars, quantum spurs were already burning their blue fire across the void, marking the beginning of our final hunt. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of running through quantum space, burning through fuel cells at a rate that made our engineers keen with distress. 3 weeks of watching the captain grow increasingly paranoid, ordering course changes at random intervals, disabling all non-essential systems to minimize our signature. 3 weeks of listening to the humans sing. I stood in processing chamber 6, running yet another routine check on our cargo. The child was still there, still watching me with those unnervingly steady eyes. But now they weren't alone in their eerie composure. All the human captives had adopted the same demeanor, that patient, knowing look. Like predators watching wounded prey stumble through their territory. Your ship's quantum wake harmonics are off, the child said matter-of-factly. Makes you easy to track. I pretended to ignore them, but my primary heart skipped a beat. Our engineers had reported anomalies in the drive's resonance pattern just this morning. The captain had ordered them to run diagnostics, but they couldn't find the cause. Mom always says Texas Knights don't really track their quarry anyway, the child continued, almost conversationally. They just remember where you're going to be. A shiver ran through my carapace. The humans had been like this for days now, making casual observations about our ship's systems, commenting on our tactical vulnerabilities, speaking about the Knights as if they could feel them getting closer. My implant buzzed. Dexedal, the captain's voice was terse. Report to the bridge. Now. I sealed the processing chamber, trying to ignore the way the humans had started humming that song again. The one about eyes. Always watching. The bridge was chaos when I arrived. Tactical displays showed impossible readings. Engineering feeds were filled with alerts. And the captain, I'd never seen her secondary mandibles quiver like that. Look, she commanded, gesturing to the main viewport. At first I saw nothing but the familiar quantum-distorted starfield. Then I noticed the patterns. Tiny ribbons of blue fire weaving through the void between stars. They seemed to follow our course, creating a web of quantum distortions that, by the void, I whispered, they're hurting us. The captain's carapace clicked in agitation. 3 vessels. Unlike anything in our database, they appeared on our sensors exactly 6 minutes ago, simultaneously, at precisely calculated points. She pulled up a tactical overlay. No conventional weapon signatures, no standard engine configurations. Just those spurs, I finished. The word tasted like fear on my tongue. The ships were unlike anything I'd ever seen. They resembled the powered armor we'd witnessed on New Boca, sleek, purposeful, adorned with those reality-warping quantum spurs. But these were massive capital ship-scale versions. Their hulls seemed to drink in starlight, except for the spurs which burned with that distinctive blue fire. Plot an escape vector, the captain ordered our navigation officer. Maximum burn on my mark. The nav officer's manipulators flew across her console, then stopped. Captain, the quantum drive isn't responding. Engineering report. All systems show nominal. Captain, our chief engineer's voice was edged with panic. But the drive, it's like the underlying physics are being locally rewritten. The quantum fields won't stabilize. On the tactical display, the 3 night vessels continued their implacable advance. They weren't rushing, weren't trying to overtake us, they were simply walking us down. Like hunters who knew their prey was already exhausted. Weapons. The captain's voice cracked. Target the lead vessel, and the bridge went dark. When the emergency lights came on 3 seconds later, every screen showed the same image. A Texas Knight, in powered armor. Quantum spurs, leaving trails of blue fire with each step through what appeared to be our own cargo hold. "No," the captain whispered. But it was real. They were already aboard. Somehow, they'd quantum walked through space itself to board us while we were still at FTL speeds. The feed showed more knights emerging from similar quantum distortions throughout the ship. Each wore that distinctive armor, each step of their spurs leaving reality subtly altered in their wake. "Security teams, respond." The captain was screaming now. "All hands, repel boarders. Use lethal force." "Use the bridge doors," opened with a hiss. A knight stood in the doorway, power armor gleaming dully in the emergency lighting. Their helmet's faceplate was polarized to perfect darkness, but I could feel their eyes upon us. Those ancient, remembering eyes. The quantum spurs on their boots hummed against our deck plating, the sound harmonizing with the human song echoing through our ship's corridors. "The eyes of Texas are upon you. All the livelong day security teams are not responding," the knight said, that distinctive drawl carrying clear across the bridge. "They chose poorly. As did you." The captain drew her pulse pistol. The knight didn't even seem to notice. "Your ship is now under the jurisdiction of the Texas Knights Recovery Division," they continued. "By the authority of the Wilson Accords and our sacred oath to recover what was taken, we are hereby executing our right of judgment. We'll release the captives." The captain's weapon trembled. "We'll pay compensation." "Will, madam." The knight's voice was almost gentle. "You were warned." The transmission was clear. The terms were stated. Their helmet tilted slightly. "We will give you no quarter." The captain fired. The pulse bolt seemed to pass right through the knight, reality itself bending around their armor. Then they moved, quantum spurs flaring, and everything went to chaos. I ran. I'm not proud of it, but I ran. Behind me I heard the distinctive crack of ancient projectile weapons, not plasma rifles or mass drivers, but simple chemical-propelled slugs. The knights, I would learn in my final moments, believed in making death personal. As I fled through our ship's corridors, I passed scenes that will haunt my nightmares in whatever afterlife awaits cowards. Knights moving with terrible purpose, their quantum-edged Bowie knives reflecting the blue fire of their spurs. Security teams falling to precisely placed shots from antique revolvers. And everywhere that song growing louder as the human captives sensed their liberation approaching. "Do not think you can escape them. From night till early in the morn, the eyes of Texas were upon us. And they had found us wanting." I've heard humans have a saying, "Your life flashes before your eyes when you die." Huddled in the maintenance shaft of Deck C, listening to the methodical sounds of justice being delivered throughout our ship, I wonder if that's true. All I can see are the moments that led us here. The child's steady gaze, the captain's trembling mandibles, the blue fire of quantum spurs burning through the void. The screams have stopped now. That's somehow worse. My implant still functions, picking up fragments of security feeds. I watch as the knights move through our ship with terrible purpose. They don't rush. Don't waste energy. Each movement is measured, precise, bearing the weight of generations of training. They're not just executing a mission, they're performing a ritual. Through the feeds, I see them reach the processing chambers. The secured doors that had held their people captive simply cease to exist, reality rewriting itself around those quantum spurs. The human captives emerge, not running or celebrating, but walking with quiet dignity. They'd known all along this would happen. They'd been waiting, watching us with those patient eyes, singing their song of remembrance. A burst of weapons fire draws my attention to another feed. 3 of our security team, veterans of a dozen successful raids, have cornered a knight in the mess hall. They're using military-grade plasma rifles, the kind that can melt through battleship armor. The knight doesn't dive for cover, doesn't return fire. They just walk forward, spurs humming against the deck, as reality itself bends around their armor. Each plasma bolt seems to slide through space where they should be, like the universe itself is conspiring to protect them. Then there's that distinctive crack of an ancient revolver, 6 shots, 6 bodies. The knight pauses only to reload, using a motion that speaks of countless hours of practice, of tradition, of a way of doing things that values the personal touch. Found another one in engineering. A voice drawls over what used to be our secure comms. Tried to overload the quantum core. Handled? Another knight asks, clean and quick. Like my granddaddy taught me. My trembling manipulator brushes against something in the shaft. A forgotten maintenance datapad. As it illuminates, I see our ship's schematics and realize the terrible truth. We never had a chance. The Knights didn't need tracking devices or quantum scanners to find us. The strange harmonics in our drive, the system failures, the communication glitches, they'd been aboard the whole time. Walking quantum paths through real space that our sensors couldn't detect, learning our ship's layout, waiting for the perfect moment to spring their trap. Through a gap in the maintenance panels, I watch as 2 Knights escort the child from processing chamber 6 through the corridor below. The taller Knight's faceplate retracts, revealing features so similar to the child's that my primary hearts clench with sudden understanding. The reunion is quiet, a simple embrace. A few soft words in that distinctive Texas drawl, tears that speak of relief rather than joy. Then the child points up, directly at my hiding spot. Found him up there, they say. The one who processed us. He was kind, as much as he could be. The Knight considers this, then nods slowly. That's so. They look up, their eyes meeting mine through the gap in the panels. Well, reckon that earns you something at least. Their hand moves to the quantum-edged Bowie knife at their belt. The blade catches the blue fire from their spurs, reflecting it like captured starlight. It'll be quick, they say, and I know they're making me a promise. One last kindness in exchange for whatever small mercies I'd shown their child. As the panel dissolves around me, I finally understand why some species warn their children never to venture near human space. It's not because of their weapons, though the Knights' quantum technology is terrifying enough. It's not because of their ships, their armor, or even those reality warping spurs. It's because of their memory. The Knights remember everything, every slight, every kindness, every debt owed and paid. They remember across generations, across light years, across the very fabric of space-time itself. And when they say they will give no quarter, it's not a threat. It's a fact, as immutable as the physical laws their quantum spurs seem to bend. The knife rises, blue fire dancing along its edge. The last thing I hear is that song, echoing through our dying ship. The eyes of Texas are upon you, till Gabriel blows his horn. In the end, they were true to their word. No quarter was asked for, and none was given. Historians note, the incident aboard the Criff slaver vessel would later be known as the New Boca Chica Remembrance. The recovered quantum logs from the Knight's spurs were added to the great archives beneath Austin Prime, where they joined 15 generations of similar recordings. To this day, Texas Knight cadets study these logs, learning the price of touching what isn't theirs, and the value of remembering both justice and mercy. For the eyes of Texas are always watching, always remembering, and always keeping their word. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave it a like and to subscribe if you'd like to see more. Feel free to comment and share it as well. With all that said, go on and check out the video in the top left. I think you might like it.